This is the Magnetar UDP900. It is a beast of a 4K Blu-ray player. It plays all of the major HDR formats, including HDR10, HDR10 Plus, and Dolby Vision. It will also output Dolby Atmos, DTS:X, and Auro 3D, the major 3D audio formats. It plays standard Blu-ray disc, 3D Blu-ray disc, DVDs, and CDs. Now, this Panasonic, the UB820 that I have right here, it will play everything that I just mentioned, all of it, okay? But what makes the Magnetar UDP900 and even its little brother 800 different is they both will also play these SACDs and DVD audio, which the Panasonic won't play. These are actually universal disc players. So if you are into your high resolution music, you definitely need to look at the players from Magnetar. The UDP900 is a videophile and audiophile's dream. This thing is just massive. It is built like a tank. I'm going to talk about the connections on the back in a moment, but let's just start with the overall build. This thing is 17 inches wide, 15 inches deep, and just over 5 inches tall with the feet built in. Now, it weighs over 34 pounds, and this thing is super dense. I mean, just take a listen to these panels. Super dense. And the reason why it is so dense is because they're trying to create a nice quiet cabinet, but they're also isolating things so that you don't have any noise or interference with your audio and video signal. They've included two 60-watt power supplies, one for the digital section and one for the analog section of this box. So they've done a lot here to make sure that you get a clean audio and video signal. Now up front, you can see you got your front panel here with the disc tray that ejects out the front. There is a power button like right here, along with play, pause, skip forward, back, and also an eject button here and a stop button along the front. And then down here, there is a USB 2.0 port along with the headphone jack right here. And the main display is right here. Now, one cool thing about this display is you can dim it. There is a dimmer button on the remote. So you can go from 100% down to like 80% down to 0%. There's like 3 settings there. But one thing about that dimmer is it does not shut off the light on the main power button. That will remain on, either red if it's off or white if the player is on. Now, speaking about this remote, I actually like this remote. It is nice and long, but it's not really wide, so it feels really good in the hand, and it's nice and smooth along the back. Now, one thing I like about it is all of the major buttons are down here at the bottom, so when you grab it, your play, pause, stop, skip back and forward buttons, that's all down here at the bottom. You can also do the seeking, and like I said, all of the major functions are down here at the bottom. But there's one thing that I want to point out. Right here, right there is the button I'm looking for. It's second up from the bottom. It is a backlight button. So you can just push that button and all of a sudden your remote lights up and you can see the buttons at night. It is great. So if you've ever been looking for a remote that has that, this remote has it. The one drawback that I can see with this remote, or I thought about, is this is an IR based remote, which means you do need to have it pointed at the front of the box versus being radio frequency. So you could just hit the buttons and you wouldn't necessarily have to have it pointed. But otherwise, I think this is a really nice remote. All right, let's talk about video quality for a second. I have to say, this looks fantastic. It plays all of the formats that I mentioned earlier, including 3D, but just remember you will need a 3D compatible television or projector to make that work, to be able to see the content, okay? Now, as far as upscaling is concerned, I found that upscalers in my television are still better than the upscalers in this. This is really good, but my television is better. And I suggest you just try it out with your television to see how it can upscale, 1080p or 480p content if you're looking at DVD content. Put this in source direct mode and it'll allow your TV to do that upscaling for you. Now, like I said, this looks fantastic. I compared it to my Panasonic UB820 and I found that this looks better, more natural, more shadow detail than my Panasonic. I was very, very surprised by that. I wasn't expecting. I would expect them to basically be the same. Now, to do that, what I did was I compared the latest Spears and Munsell UHD Benchmarks calibration DVDs, or Blu-rays really. It's like 3 discs in here and they've got demo material on them, and I was just looking at them back and forth. And what I did was I had my HDMI connection to my television, the LG C1, and the other end plugged in here. playing the content, then I would unplug it from here and plug it directly into my Panasonic and play the content again. Okay, so try to get it as back to back as I could, and let me just show you what I found. This is one of the butterfly scenes on the Spears and Munsell disc, and what you're watching is the UDP900. You can see that nice colors, nice blacks, nice whites on the wings. It just looks overall like a good picture. But I'm going to stop here. Actually, I'm going to drag it forward just a little bit because I want to show you how this compares to the Panasonic UB820. So you can see, again, a lot of nice rich colors. You got white here, you got black there. But I want you to pay attention to this petal right here on this particular flower. And I'm going to shift over to the Panasonic. Okay, so here we are. We've got the Panasonic, and you can see the entire screen was brighter. You still got the nice whites here. Blacks aren't as black, but it still looks pretty good. But this particular petal on the flower, we lost some shadow detail, so it's harder to tell here that it is upturned once we move over to the Panasonic. So I'm going to go back to the UDP900. You can see that shadow detail there. Panasonic, Magnetar, Panasonic, Magnetar. So the Magnetar UDP900 is just a bit more natural looking compared to the Panasonic UB820. Now, looking at real content, if you don't look at these back to back, the Panasonic still looks fantastic, okay? But once you actually record them and look at them back to back, you notice the difference, that the Magnetar is just a bit more natural looking compared to the Panasonic. Here we are around back of the UDP900, and you can see all of these connections right here. And while I'm talking about the connections, I want to talk about my experience just using this thing. And I have to say, it was a complete joy. This is some of the most fun that I've had in a long time just doing a product review. I mentioned the Oppo Blu-ray player earlier, and I don't own one, but I now understand why people love them so much, and I regret that I didn't buy one. Okay, now the comparable Oppo Blu-ray player to this one would be the 205. That was the high end, and this is the high end version of this. And you can see all the connections here. And I want to start up top here. These are the analog outputs. This is going to give you the best audio quality that this player can provide when it comes down to 2-channel listening. You've got left and right, both XLR and RCA connections. They have an dedicated built-in DAC just for these connections. I think it's the ESS 938 Pro DAC that's just for these connections. Okay, fantastic, right? Now below that is the Ethernet connection. This box does not have Wi-Fi, but it does have Ethernet. I plugged this in. I was able to do updates over this, and I was also able to listen to music and watch video files that were on a server that I had connected to, or a hard drive rather, that I had connected to my network. It worked both audio and video. Couldn't find a file format that it didn't work with. Okay, next we have 2 HDMI connections. One is the main connection that does both audio and video, and there's also a secondary connection here that does audio only. And I recommend, if you can, to plug in this to your TV and then plug this into your AV receiver or processor that you're using. Just use 2 HDMI connections. That way you're just sending dedicated video signal to your television, which is going to do its best job, and then you're sending the audio signal to your AV processor or receiver, and it's going to do its best job decoding the signal. Now, next to that is this USB 3.0 connection that I mentioned earlier. I did plug in this particular hard drive with some DSD 256 files, FLAC, ALAC, WAVE, all of that on here. It played directly off of this. It worked. Okay, so audio and video works. It works fantastic. Then there's this RS-232 port right here. It's a serial port. Above that is the USB DAC. So you use this to plug into your computer. On the other end, I did that. I was able to play from Amazon Music. Could play Tidal. I could play Qobuz. All of those file formats. You can play them, right? This doesn't have any apps built in, and like I said, it does not have a Wi-Fi, but since you have this connection, you can plug right into your computer as a USB class 2 device, and it works. Okay, now Right here is the coaxial and the optical connection. I use those, plug them into the Cambridge Audio Evo 150, and it works. But I will say this, if you have an SACD or DVD audio, these two connections will not work due to bandwidth limitations, and I think there's also some copyright limitations on SACD. So you will have to use these connections right here. Next, we have the 7-channel analog outputs right here. So think front, left, right, center, subwoofer, surround back, all of that's right here. Now, two cool things. First of all, this has its own dedicated DAC as well. I think it's the 928 Pro. That's different from this, so that's cool. But also in the setup menu, you can go in and you can set up the right distances and even levels to your speakers. Now, finally, over here, we have the main power connection here and the on-off power switch. That's everything on back. But again, this thing sounds fantastic when listening to music and watching movies. I listen to music on this section over here, and I watch movies with this section over here with the Cambridge Audio Evo 150 and also my Monoprice Monolith 7-channel amplifier, along with the KEF R6 Metas, which I just reviewed, sent those back. They sound fantastic, by the way. And also my own Oriental Sound 1723S. And I have to say, the presentation overall is nice and wide with things spatially placed where it's supposed to be placed. It's not too forward and bright, nor is it too laid back either. It's just in the middle. It's like a Goldilocks experience from the DACs built into this. Music, movies, everything sounds natural and placed where it's supposed to be placed, which is what you want, okay? This is audiophile grade with all the connections, and it sounds audiophile grade. It sounds fantastic. And yes, you can connect directly to a power amplifier and use the volume control on the remote to actually change the volume, and the scale is nice and linear. Another thing I like about the 900 is the fact that it is so well built. They've put rubber on the bottom of the feet, so this does not slide around on a hard surface. Combined with the weight, it doesn't slide around on a hard surface. Even when you're unplugging and plugging things back in, you can just do it and you don't have to worry about it sliding around, which is something I like. This is in there nice and snug, but I just put it in just like that, and I don't have to hold on to the chassis. So that's another little small thing that I noticed, but I like a lot with the 900. The UDP900 is a fantastic 4K Blu-ray player. I mean, this thing is just fantastic from a video standpoint, from an audio standpoint. It all works. It all comes together. But I can't really recommend it for everybody out there because it is $2,999 as I record this video. So it's pretty expensive. Basically, this is for two types of people that I can see. It's for someone who money's not an object. And if that's you, definitely buy this player. It'll basically do everything you want it to do. Okay, it will basically do everything you want it to do. But it's also for those of you who are very serious about your video and your audio, and you want to be able to play the SACDs that you own or that you are planning to buy. Plus, you want to play all of the music and video files that you have on your network, and even play some files off of your computer via the built-in USB DAC back here, right? So if you are very serious about your video and your audio, and you're looking for what is more or less an all-in-one player, a universal disc player, definitely look at this particular box, the UDP900. Now, if you can't swing $3,000. The UDP800 is about $1,600 as I record this. Still expensive, but not quite up to these levels. I have not tried the UDP800, but based on my experience with this, I'm pretty sure it is very nice as well. And I'll put links to both in the description below so you can go check them out. But if you have questions, please drop them in the comment section and I will try to answer them. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you next time.